Hey, how you doing? What's up? Welcome to ITTO Extreme. Well, in ITTO Extreme, we talk about taking our knowledge regarding ITTOs to the next level, making it really extreme. You've probably heard of extreme programming. Well, you know, extreme programming has to do with taking everything that surrounds a particular interest in IT to the extreme, programming to the extreme, testing to the extreme. If testing is good, let's test all the time. If programming is good, let's program all the time. Well, if ITTOs are good, then let's talk ITTOs all day long. And ITTOs are huge on the PMP exam. Now, I've got the skeptics who say, well, you don't have to cram all the ITTOs. I'm not talking about cramming where they come from or where they go. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about knowing the ITTOs. Knowing the ITTOs cold. Not knowing them in terms of memorizing them. No, that's not what I'm talking about. That's old school. No. I'm talking about knowing the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs of every single process, but not just knowing them mechanically. Understanding them is really what's key here. You know, let's talk about the project charter, for example, or the statement of work. Where do they come from? What are they used for? What would be the bottleneck I am bound to face without a project charter? Those are the kind of questions that I would like you to answer. So in ITTO Extreme today, we're covering two areas. We're covering scope management and we're covering time management. Now in scope management, the ITTOs that stick out from collect requirements are the requirements documentation and requirements traceability matrix. Also, when we talk about collecting requirements, we talk about brainstorming and facilitated workshops and questionnaires and surveys, focus groups, all of that good stuff. Now, I don't want you to mechanically know them. I want you to tell me in your own words what those things are. What about defined scope? When you talk about the project scope statement, what differentiates a project scope statement from a statement of work, or what differentiates it from a procurement document? That's the level of detail I'm looking for. Where do you get your scope statement from? What is in it? What are exclusions and inclusions, constraints and assumptions? Why are they in the project scope statement? I want you to explain and demystify all of this stuff for me. You know, when you talk about create WBS, we talk about the work breakdown structure and decomposition and how we use decomposition to get our WBS. But my question to you is, do you know the different levels in a WBS? Do you know the work package level, the control account level? Do you know what a planning package is? Do you know what a root node is? Do you know the 0-100 rule? Do you know the 100% rule, rather? Those are the kind of things I expect you to answer, not just skimming on the surface, but really giving me some, oh, there's an airstrip somewhere close by. You heard that plane go over. But I want you to really know this stuff cold. Be able to, you know, take an ITTO and tear it apart and demystify it. If you haven't gotten to the level where you can take an ITTO apart, then you're not ready for the PMP exam. Moving on to the next process in scope management, verify scope. Talking about verify scope, what is going on here? What exactly is your customer doing? What is your stakeholder doing? They're verifying if that final deliverable is good to go. So one of the things you get out is accepted deliverables. What is the difference between an accepted deliverable and a validated deliverable? And what's the difference between a validated deliverable and final product, service, or result transition? Or just a mere deliverable from direct and managed project execution? That's the level of detail you need to get to. Alright? Go into the last process in control scope. My question to you in control scope is, what happens in control scope? We're controlling scope, but a large component of any controlling activity, those from the triple constraint especially, is variance analysis. Variance analysis is pretty important. So do you know what a variance analysis is? Can you explain it in your own words? You know, that's the level of detail I expect in this process. When we talk about, you know, change requests, what kind of change requests are we talking about? What is the protocol for scope change on a project? You know, I really want you to think far, you know, think far, think deep, you know, don't just skim over the surface. Going into time management. Let's talk about the ITTOs here. Define activities. What are we doing? We're taking our scope baseline, which contains our WBS. We're going to decompose it. So when we talk about decomposition here, bear in mind that it's a different approach, different thing we're doing, right? We're decomposing, but we're decomposing from the work package level. So I want you to ask questions like, well, why is the scope baseline an input and not the WBS? Then you begin to understand what the scope baseline contains in the first place. Or you begin to remember what it contains. Activity attributes. What are activity attributes? That's an output from define activities. But what exactly is an activity attribute? What does it mean? Those are the kind of things I'm looking for. Detail. Milestone list. What is a milestone list? What is an activity list? Why should I care about an activity list? How does that fuel anything else I'm doing in time management? Like sequence activities, your project schedule network diagrams, you know, can you really break that apart? Can you explain ADM, AOA, PDM, you know, all of those network diagram types? Can you explain them? Can you really explain what goes on in that process? You know, that's what I'm looking for. Detail. Every ITTO needs to be stripped bare and needs to be exposed in your prep. If you haven't gone to the level where your ITTOs are uncovered, you've not started. Okay? Let's go on to the next one. After sequence activities, we've got estimate activity resources, estimate activity durations. What is an activity duration estimate? What is an activity resource requirement? Stuff like that. You know, cover all your ITTOs and explain them to yourself such that you know them inside out. That's what I'm talking about. If you haven't gotten to that point, you haven't started. Moving on to develop schedule, we come out with a project schedule. What's the difference between a project schedule and schedule baseline? Explain it. Convince yourself that you know it. How about control schedule? What exactly are you doing there? That's the level I'm looking for from you, okay? Well, I think that spells it. I think you get the message. You know what I'm looking for, don't you? You know what I'm looking for from you. I'm looking for lots and lots of detail, okay? So, I think that spells it out. Have a wonderful day. Stay in the zone. I tell people stay mysticated. Stay in the zone of the PMI. PMI-sticated. My-sticated. Alright? Go on steroids or something, you know. Get riled up. Get excited about this PMP stuff. Or you'll never get it done, I tell you. You'll never get it done if you don't stay fired up. Enough said. I'm out. Speak to you later.